Can you hear me now? Now you should be able to hear me actually. Cool. Then I think we are ready to. I think we're ready to start now. Then and welcome to the live. I think for those that are coming here for the first time, uh, welcome for the first time. Would be great if you just drop a hi in the chat and let me know also where are you joining from. That would be great. I'm currently located in Germany, but I'm actually from Greece. And yeah, that would be great to hear if where you coming on from, guys, and when where are you watching me from? Just before we start, just to you know break the ice, let's call it like that, and slowly start going into the feedback. So hi to Prince. I'm reading already in the chat. Prince has already is already here, and hi to Munsur. Hi guys. I'm glad that you joined. We're gonna be starting in just a few minutes. We had some technical difficulties with the sound, um, and hopefully now they are resolved, and hopefully everybody can actually see me very well. Yeah, hi Prince. You're located in India. That's cool. And hi Katerina from Germany. All right. I'm gonna go through the different entries, guys, that they had. I think it were this time were about 7 entries from your side. On purpose this time I didn't really reminded a lot of the times that there was a live stream, because last time that I did that, I had more than 13 and more than 13 entries actually for feedback, and I wasn't able with such high number to actually dive a little bit more on each drawing and give you a little bit more of a better feedback on that. So that's why this time I opted to just announce it and keep it there as a highlight, so whoever actually went and was really interested on that, they would be able to actually submit. There will be, of course, more live such lives in the future, right? I'm planning to do more because I'm seeing a lot of people want to improve their art and get feedback. And since people think it's interesting and helpful, that also, you know, sends me a message that I need to do more on that stuff. But at the same time, I want to try to keep the amount of entries low, like from 5 to 7, so that I can spend a little bit more time on every entry, and it's not just 5-10 minutes saying some general stuff and then going immediately to the next entry. All right. So I'm gonna go through the different entries on the way they were submitted to me, or like by the time they submit to me. So the first entry that I have here is from an artist that had already submitted also last time. So it's from Mythstroke. Hopefully you can see my screen coming up with his entry. I would like to say, first of all, to Mythstroke, thanks for submitting your entry. It's really cool. And he also submitted the reference with it, which will be also helpful to understand where he got his inspiration for this character and so on. So what I usually do on the lives is I'm going before the live and preparing some stuff, writing some notes on what I see and what I would like to go through. And I did it also here for this entry. As you can see, mainly I want to focus here on three things. One is the floor perspective, then is the light direction, and then there is the ref and pose. So looking at that, let's first of all look at the ref and pose itself. Like if like the so what I really like from the character is that it has a good color palette. It's interesting because it has an expression, and also looks like a very fun character, which is more like a sci-fi. And I really like the effect here on the left of the lightsaber or sword with a laser. I think this is really cool. But looking at the reference, first of all, if you see the reference that you submitted, Mythstroke, I'm pretty sure you already know that this is based on AI. This reference, right? It's not a real photograph, and it's more like an AI generated image. I imagine from different photographs. It could be from an artist. I really doubt it. I don't know if you're in the chat, Miss Stroke. It would be great to let us know if it's from an artist or it's AI. But if you're not in the chat, I would probably most assume that it's from it's an AI generated image, the reference. So I'm gonna point out a few things here, right? On the reference, when we are using references from AI as a tool potentially from for our drawings, I would be very careful on that, because as we all know, AI doesn't understand what anatomy is, right? What is perspective, and all the rules that we are relying on drawing, and it's just generating images based on the training data that it has. That means it can already, for example, exaggerate. Let me show you these areas that are exaggerated for this AI. Let me move the actual character and just make the AI image a little bit bigger. Drop the opacity and pick a color and show you some of the exaggerated stuff that the AI has already done. So if you see here, torso here is already very small, right? It's about that, her torso, and it has also exaggerated the pelvis on this side. So that means when I go and draw based on this image with this exaggeration in mind, I shouldn't even more exaggerate these areas, because I'm gonna end up having something like a very broken anatomy, right? And these are the stuff we need to be careful by when we use AI images for references, that we have to have always in mind that these images may not be correct in terms of basic anatomy or in terms of proportions and all this stuff. So having said all that, what I suggest instead is actually try to find other kind of references that are based on real human photographs, right? And I have collected 3 references here from different shapes, right? So this is the same pose on a person that is a little bit thinner. This is persons on another shape, right? More to the shape that we are looking at, the reference of AI, or at the actual final character. So as you can see, the difference compared to the AI is that if we follow again this kind of pelvis area, is not really exaggerated that much, right? Either here or even here, but it's much more let's say nuanced and going much let's say the flow is much less there. So so having said that in mind, right, if we wanna correct a little bit the pose on this area, what we need to do is, for example, let me just drop the opacity here, is two things. One thing that is missing on this pose is the pelvis itself. So if I draw on top and try to figure out what are the anatomy in terms of bone anatomy, right? Areas of this character. One is, of course, I have the upper torso anatomy, and then I would have to place the pelvis, right? And I have the line of the shoulders, and somehow I need to place the pelvis here. So ideally, if I'm placing the pelvis, I need to have some space for this, right? So that means I need to have the upper part of the pelvis, move it here, and then somehow have some area of pelvis here. And even if we are talking about people that, let's say, compared to this kind of body size, right? Then even them have already this area here. For example, if I go on top, then you can see very closely her pelvis is coming like this, right? So I need to make sure I have the same anatomical things here. And the second thing is that then the feet will start from here, and most probably having in mind our references, I would suggest is to do something like that, right? And then I have the foot here, and then I have the the back of the foot here. Then, of course, that would mean that this whole thing will come down. And even if I want to exaggerate, I cannot exaggerate that much, but a little bit we can do exaggeration. Then have the rest of the foot here, and right, we have the knees here, and we have the rest of the foot. So that would be my suggestion, right? Is going over the pose and thinking about the anatomical areas and structure, and where would I have all this bones coming around on the character, right? Then I have the shoulders here, and then I have this, and this is the basic skeleton where we are starting on, right? So having this in mind, then I can go over, let's put also the head just for, then I can go over and start building on top of that. So if I just do another layer and just start picking the basic colors, right, then I can do this one, then here is the boots. I'm just doing this very quickly, right? I'm not just doing a paint over. And then we have the boots, and then that means this is the background here, and the cape will come behind this, so this would be the background, and the rest, of course, would be like that, right? So if I just hide this, then you can see that, let me just paint a little bit more of the background, just for us to see what's happening. So what you can see is previously we had the pelvis coming up here on this area, but now it's coming lower, right? And then it creates this kind of anatomical structure that we need. That's one of the things, that's one comment on the pose. And at the same time, also, I would like to say that it's really fine to do backgrounds on very simple backgrounds, right? There's no problem at all. I would actually recommend it whenever you have a character. It's best to choose a very, very simple background, right? Let's just a color in the back, but let's make sure that the character sits on top of a very specific perspective, what we are expecting, right? So if you see the original, again, AI-based reference, there is a similar perspective here, right? Like there is these two lines where they show us the perspective, where they start here, right, and going here, and then potentially they meet here, and this would be our horizon line. So that means like from this area above, I'm seeing the character from below, and from this area down, I'm seeing the character from above, right? And if we want to create this here, the same thing is we're gonna have to make sure that we have also some kind of sense of perspective. That means these areas would be bigger here, right? But then would be a little bit smaller here, and then even smaller here, here. So they can give you the sense that there is a perspective going, there's a perspective line going back, right? So that means if I follow this line again here, right, there is somewhere the character is sitting on top, right? There's an actual floor, and usually you can actually if you wanna have a sense of where are you drawing your characters, where you're painting your characters, you can always actually have it as a guide and first design it like that, right? Have the perspective, and then that would help you with the feet. That means like if I wanna now create the boots correctly, then I will have to do this, and then I know that they are landing here because I have this perspective behind me that I know the lines are going like that. So if I want to draw it, right, here of course we won't see the back of the boot, but then here we would need to see this thing so that the boot is actually touching the floor, right? Exactly this heel here will actually indicate that we have this kind of perspective. So that's on the floor perspective. So I would suggest doing this kind of wireframes to help you paint in such a sense that the floor is actually, right, believable in terms of perspective, right? So bigger dabs here, right? Smaller dabs here, even smaller here as we go back, so we can give even the floor a sense of perspective. And finally, we have the light, where the lights in terms of 3D, in terms of representing 3D forms is very good, right? On this from Mythstroke is very good. Is a very good effort because I can clearly see that this leg is going like that, right? I can see this leg is going like that, and I can see also here chest has this curve, and the and the leg and the arm has this has this whole roundness, but that could be better if there is a sense of light source, because what I'm missing here is like when I'm seeing this arm on the left, I'm seeing, okay, there is probably a light source coming from here. Maybe it's the sword, yes, but at the same time on the chest itself, right, I'm seeing somewhere the light source coming from here. Then on the leg, I'm seeing the light source coming from here, and on this leg is coming from here. So it's kind of confusing how many light sources we have and how they react with a character. So if I wanted to paint, this character with a more consistent and light sources with purpose, so I can show things as they go, I would pick one light source as a main light source, right? And a secondary light source, which either would play the role of the bounce light, as we call it, or rim light, right? So I would probably paint the character in a sense that, and let me quickly show you on this character how we can do it quickly, is I can just duplicate the character, have him much darker, right? Or even, let's make it even better. Let me just pick a multiply layer from this background layer, and then let's do it like that. So let's assume that the light source that I want to have here, the main light source, is coming from above. That would mean that several areas have to become darker, right? And that means this area has to become darker. Let's move it to multiply, right? Then I have this area. This is quite good enough. Then I have this area becomes darker. Then I have also this cast shadow from the neck, and I have the cast shadow from the nose, right? Then I have the shadows in the eyes. Then when I come here, I need to have another shadow, because as the knee, for example, turns, then I need to go to the shadow, right? All this area has to go to shadow, and also this we have to drop it in shadow, this we have to drop it in shadow. And then what happens with the rest, right? Then we need to create light for the rest. So all this now becomes light. There's very little shadow because the light comes from above, right? Also these areas are light, and this area also is light. But of course we said there should be a pelvis here, right? So let's just create it. But here, how the form is turning, there should be a very, very small shadow here turning the form, right? And if we just do it like that, should be. So this is how we would think, right? In the sense that the light is coming from above. And that means, like here, let me do a cast shadow here and just increase the light area. And if we zoom out, right, let me make it a little bit less. There shouldn't be any highlight here. There should be like this. And if we zoom out slowly, we will start to see that there are areas of light, right, and darkness in that sense. For example, the nose, this plane here is way too dark for this, for the light coming from above. So I can just make it a little bit less darker. Then the face should go darker, but not so much here. So the face gradually goes darker, right? As we go down. And also not so much dark here, because simply we're getting heat from the light, right? All these are planes that getting heat from the light, pretty much. And slowly, as we go through this, for example, this should be much lighter as it turns, right? And this should be lighter, but this should be a little bit darker. Maybe that's a better color. And just, um, I'm just giving you a general idea how to think in order to get this right. And also for the hair, exactly the same. Like when the light is coming from above, this area is the lighter. This area is dark, but this area should be a little bit darker, right? As we go down. And of course, this area again should be light. This should be light. This should be light, right? Because all this hair is actually being hit by the light. And the cape, similarly, this is where the light comes, right? We are being hit by the light on the top, and then we can make this stuff, all this stuff darker. And of course, you can go in and do every detail and every fold, but I'm just painting here the general light, right? So when you are done with that, when you are done with this areas, sorry, and you know exactly where the first light is coming from, then you can go and apply the secondary light, right? So if we have now the rim light, for example, then we need to choose in this area which is the stronger light, right? And since the lightsaber is much stronger, then what we can do is take some artistic liberty and say, okay, here again, the arm is turning, right? And we have all this turning of the arm. So that means that gives us a little bit of space to do a rim light here, right? So we take the light of the lightsaber and we just apply it in these areas, right? And this is how we are thinking in terms of lights and dark. Hopefully this helps you more in actually understanding the light, right? And choosing every time to solve the light issue by doing a step-by-step approach, right? So first we choose the major light, and then we go and paint whatever secondary or bounce light we want, right? And that's the before and that's the after, right? Like if you see from a little bit far away, of course, all my brushes now are just very, very quick and very, very dirty in order to give you the idea. But you can see how the light is changing from different light sources to mainly coming from above, right? And then you can apply the light. Yeah. So if you guys in the chat have any questions, or if Mythstroke is in the chat has any questions, let me know in the chat. I'll try now to go to the second one, just because of the time, and I can always come back to this if you have any questions. Hi Satish Kumar. Hi. So the second entry I have is actually from Naya, which is a character artist, and she submitted two different characters for me to critique. First of all, thank you, Naya, for submitting. These are great characters. And let me go through a little bit of my notes to see what I have written down here. Yeah, so in general, I really like them, and I like the idea. I really like the fighter character, which has this interesting ears, and he has this also very, very cool beard. I really also like the colors. I think they go well together. And also I also like this character, which is the pose I really like is very interesting, and the expression is really interesting. But let's see some things that you could do here in order to improve your characters, right? One thing that I see on the first characters, um, on the first character is the face perspective. And what I mean by that is that if you go and run and do some lines over your character, right, you can see that, let me just pick a strong color. You can see this line goes like that, which is the line of the eyebrows, but then the eyes go a little bit like that. Then the nose goes like that, and then the mouth goes like that, and then I think the line of the chin goes like that, but I'm not entirely sure. That means like somewhere in the whole process, either on the line art or somewhere there, we kind of losing the perspective, right? That's not that usually happens a lot, right? Like you zoom in, you get very very well focused on your lines and all the stuff, and some things get moved around and so on. So what I would suggest is try to have this kind of lines checked from time to time while you're drawing, and have parallel lines, right, like this, in order to be checking whether your features are in the correct parallel lines. So most probably what you will do in that stage is kind of take the feature, right, and then give it a little bit of a turn, something like that, just to make sure that the nose is getting at the same perspective as this. Then you have then we have the eyebrows. Maybe if we just move this a little bit more down, then we get the correct perspective. Let me just do it a little bit more properly. And you see, with just a little bit of movement, we can actually correct the perspective of the character, of the face of the character. So something like this. And of course, another thing is why I chose to lower the eyebrow is just pretty much because we are seeing the character from above. That means we're seeing the head, and that means the eyebrows, the distance of the eyebrow and the eye should be smaller than the front view, right, of the character. Like if we had the face of the character on eye level, this distance would be a little bit greater. Now we're just seeing the character from above, then this distance is a little bit higher. And a final suggestion I have for this is try to make a little bit the chin here a little bit more clear on where it goes, just that it shows that the perspective is like that, for example. And then if we do the before and after, you see already how the features were kind of going in different places before, but now they're just more like in the same, looking at the same perspective, right? The second thing I've written down is like how we approach proportions and anatomy at the same time on the arms, right? And this doesn't mean that we need to abide to the proportions of of, you know, we have a character here, right? We have your character, and then you have your proportions. Then you know, okay, my arms would be up to here. Then I have the other arms, and then I just, you know, measure this and come here down. So I have to come here, and then these are my legs, right? And that means, okay, every character should have these proportions. These are proportions for the general standard body proportions, as we call them. So half of the body is the legs, right, and the rest is the torso and the pelvis, and so on. This is the diagram we all learn. But of course, we can play a lot with proportions and make the legs or the arms like lower and so on. That's all good and fine when we are creating characters, something like that, right? So this is more like a character that has a little bit of longer arms or shorter legs, depending on the case. But what we need to be careful is that if I'm setting up this arm to be like that, then I need to have a similar proportion on the other arm, right? And that means when I measure this line here, right, effectively the arm turns here, this is the shoulder and the arm turns here, then if I take this line, and of course the arm shouldn't be foreshortened, but at this point I think since the camera is like that, it's not foreshortened, or at least this is the intention. That means this also has to be here, right? So having these measurements will help you get better proportions for your characters. So that means what I have to do is I can go now and take this arm, right? Take the whole arm and move it in the way that it is meant to be, somewhere around here, right? And then also try to correct that. Just make some line art here to be okay. All right, so that means, like, if you see now the before and after, you immediately understand that, okay, this was very short, right? Now it's much better. And of course, you would have to have the shoulder here, so we have to have a bump on the shoulder, right? Let's just do this, so it's better, and so on. Now, the second thing we see on the character is like, there is a notion of anatomy, but I'm going to assume that this character is kind of a humanoid character, so that it has similar muscles as we have in our arms, all right? And that means that I need to know a few things about arm anatomy, right? In order to make this believable, this arm believable. And if I wanna just kind of wing it here, I would suggest most probably then we have the bicep, then we have this intermediate muscle before the triceps, then we have the muscle coming from here, right? That means this muscle is coming like that, and that means we have this area here doing like this, right? So of course we can do it like that, but also we can be helped a lot by looking at references, right, and seeing, okay, how these muscles are this. For example, I just took this reference from Sketchfab, right, where you can find a lot of 3D models for characters, and similar as you can see, like, okay, we have these muscles here, these muscles coming from here, and so on. And then you can choose how much detail you can do it or non-detailed. But effectively, I would suggest is looking a little bit at 3D models on different anatomy references, and then you will have a much better representation of an arm. Okay, so that's one of the things. I have also written kind of cloth movement here. I mean, it's kind of nitpicking. You could potentially give the clothes a little bit more of a movement here, in the sense that how they are coming down, right? I would just suggest is just make them a little bit more like moving like that, so they can just also at the same time describe, I'm sorry, the arm a little bit better, and also follow, you know, the opening of the jacket here, and so on. That will give you a little bit of better flow and a little bit of kind of interesting pose and dynamic poses. But that's just nitpicking on the one character. And again, that's the after, that's the before, right? And that's the after. We didn't change that much. We just changed a little bit of things. Let's lower a little bit the muscles also definition, just to have not so many lines, right? That's just the after, before, after, right? That's the whole idea. Then here, the only things I would say as feedback, I really like the pose, I said, I really like the expression of the character. I would definitely do similar proportion checks as on the other character, but I wanted to focus a little bit on the shirt reference, and I just took some reference of shirts, of like this kind of baggy shirts, because this is what I'm seeing here, that we are seeing. And as you can see, it's close, but I think we are missing some stuff here. For example, like to make it a little bit more believable, like this line, for example, here should go like that, right? This should not be that much here. This should be a little bit more relaxed, and then could go also doing this kind of stuff depending on the light, right? Or this. So I would kind of look on different reference of shirts, right? And how they are ending up on the body, and kind of a little bit fix the folds and the areas, for example, having in mind that the shirts are like, this is a more relaxed shirt. If it's more if it's not a relaxed shirt, it's more like very stretched to the body, then alternatively, then we have to go the other way around and just put much more emphasis on these areas, right? On these areas here, and just create this kind of stuff, so we can show that it's much more stretched, and that means even stretching it here and so on. But of course this always would be like that, even if it's stretched. Okay, so I would suggest looking at different references and choosing, is my shirt very stretched or very loose, or something like that, and based on that, looking at different references and trying to find out, okay, what we are looking for. And the second thing is I want to suggest is a little bit more focus on the light, right? Like you can still do the simplified shading, but since we have a very simplified shading, I would suggest a little bit more contrast on the shadows, so that it doesn't flatten the character out, right? Like, for example, you have this very good shadow here, just push it a little bit more, right? Like this. Usually top down light is the light most of the artists are choosing for character design. Let's push the shadows a little bit more, just to make sure that the light, and here the down plane of the nose, let's make sure that the light is more clear, right? There is a contrast of things, and we can show also a potential client or a potential company we're applying that we know about lighting and we know how to light stuff. And that's pretty much these are my comments for this character. I really liked both characters. I think they're great ideas, and thank you again for submitting. As always, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat, and I'll make sure to I'm seeing the chat, so I'll make sure that if you have any questions, either you or you guys in the or the rest in the chat, I'll make sure to answer them. Yeah. Then this submission from Artistship. Thank you again for submitting. Also, it's a great submission. It's a romantic scene of two people. I assume here. I really like the line art, and I really like the high contrast of the different areas. And I really like the idea, and also the position of the arms in general. I really like that. What you can do actually to actually improve this one is the following. One thing is, so mainly what I've written here is perspective, right? So this is what we are missing here, is like we have these lines on the floor, on the desk, going here, for example, and on the ceiling going like this. And what I did before starting this as a preparation is try to draw the lines and find out where they are meeting. And I did this, and they were not really meeting anywhere. Like if you see these lines from the ceiling starting, they're going kind of meeting here. So if we take into account that this is the horizon line, then these lines here should have been meeting there, right? Somehow. So my suggestion for this entry is to, first of all, choose a horizon line, right, from the start, before you even try to draw the characters. That will help you much better in identifying, okay, where do I wanna place my characters, right? Is it above the eyesight? Is it below? Is it even, in the classic eyesight level where half of the character is above and half is below, or part of it is above and part is below? So if we do this, right, if we do this decision and say, okay, my horizon line is somewhere here, right? Then that means, okay, this line comes here and this line comes here, so I need to correct it. And then that line would come here and this line come here, right? And then maybe the desk will end up here, and probably the door as it opens, most probably, right, will come here, and then most probably we end up somewhere here, depending on the floor, or even you can move it down there. But what about the characters, right? How this helps us with the characters? So here is where we put the knowledge of drawing boxes and how this gets applied on the characters based on the perspective that we selected, right? So if I have, the desk at this area, right, like this area here, that means she's sitting on the desk, and that means her pelvis will start, since I'm below the horizon line, right? This is horizon line. That means I am seeing the pelvis here. And if I have the perspective like that, that means I need to draw the pelvis like that, then put it here, and that's a box representing the pelvis. And then I have the other boxes which they are representing the legs. That means I'm drawing lines like this, and I'm saying, okay, this is the first leg going here, and this is the other leg going here, right? So I have those two legs, and then I have the rest of the body, where if I'm starting a little bit higher than the pelvis, I'm drawing another box. And this probably comes like even above the horizon line. Let's say like that. So I'm gonna start here, then go here, and then meet here, right? So this box here that represents her torso goes half above the horizon and half below the horizon line. And then where would I put the shoulder? I would just put it here, and the other shoulder, then I know already the line, I will put it here. And then I will try to draw the hand like this, then make it like that, and then the other hand will come from that so below, right? You see the other hand comes here. So if I lower the opacity of this image, and let's do the neck, the head, right? We are above now. We have to see the below. And then we do the same for him, where we have his pelvis somewhere around here, right? This area. Let's just draw lines just to be completely correct. Then we have his legs. Then we have his torso starting, right? And then I have this kind of torso pushing the other perspective, and then I have his arm and this, right? And then I have his neck, where I will have to be seeing from above. That means we have a new kind of structure to draw upon. And if I draw now on top of the structure, I can make sure that everything is on a correct perspective, right? That means her leg is on here, and the second leg is here, and then we have this, and then I have this, and then I have here one arm touching him, and the second on his shoulder, and I have and then I have here lower here, right? So let's drop this. So you see how having the knowledge of the perspective will actually help us draw the correct position, right? And that means that that simply means that starting from boxes and putting them on the vanishing point, which would be here, and designing the whole pose around this perspective, right, that I chosen from the start, instead of thinking this in a second as a second attempt, right? So the best way to approach the stuff is we pick up a perspective, or if we even have a reference, we understand the perspective of the reference first, and then we start drawing on top of this perspective, right? Hopefully this helps. And if you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Like, I really like, as I said, the line art and so on. It just needs a little bit of more attention to perspective and how we draw the different characters, right? Based on the perspective. And the key here, the key secret is start with boxes. That's why we say just practice with boxes, practice perspective with boxes. For example, having on this perspective, right, we have here, what you can do is, okay, I have this vanishing point here. I'm starting to draw lines, right, on this, on the perspective. How would be this box, right? How would be this box? Like if I just draw lines here, right, what would be the other line? Okay, so it's coming here, then this is coming here, and then I have this box. So I have a box that starts like this, goes like this, and like this, right? So that means I am seeing this plane. But if I move above, right, how this box changes is if I draw lines, then I see the plane below, right? I'm not seeing it in the same sense as before. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful. That's the, let me show you again. What we did is we had the first picture, right, your submission. We identified the perspective we wanna draw compared to the perspective that was there before, which was different perspective for different elements. Then we did a structure based on this perspective using boxes mainly. Then we lowered the opacity, and then we just created new position of the same pose, pretty much, right? More correct to the perspective that we have. All right. Then let's go to Steve. So here we are, Steve. Thank you for your submission. I think it's really great. Let me just hide a little bit my notes and the references that I have. I really like it's very dynamic. It shows kind of an actual parkour scene in the future. I really like the idea. I really like the colors, especially I like the colors of this character because they are complementary. That means this blue compared to this yellow, they are opposite on the color wheel, right? So this is here the yellow, and if I choose this blue, like it's exactly opposite. That means this character is very, 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 very visible from very far away compared to the other character. I would have preferred a little bit similar colors on the other one, but that's just nitpicking. They really look great. But what I would like to give you some tips on is how to make it a little bit better in general. One thing is that could definitely improve this one is a composition and overlap of the characters, and I will explain what is this, and also light direction. So let me explain the first thing, right? About composition. One of the easiest ways to place your characters is to create such a box on your canvas, and then divide this box in 3 equal parts, right? Which are not equal like that, like it's like this, and then 3 equal vertical parts somewhere around there. And why we do that? Usually the human eye is being drawn on specific areas of this box, and these areas is where these lines are meeting, right? So here are the interesting points for the human eye and mind. So if you place significant parts of your characters in these areas, then it's really it's almost guaranteed that that they will look at this picture are going to see this, start seeing from this places first, right, and then go to the next. So with this simple trick, having in mind this simple trick, right, we can just move the characters closer to these areas and create a more interesting composition. So if I just just kind of move the characters in this area, let's move a little bit him here and a little bit here. Then we are much closer to this positions of interest, right? This gives us two advantages actually. One is we are going closer to the point that many eyes can see, right? And they are the interesting points on this composition, which is called the three tier composition. But at the same time, what we are achieving is we are also eliminating some other issues with the previous positions, is that we have this specific hand here. If I just hide this character exactly at the corner of the picture, and that creates what we call a tangent, right? And that means if I just pick up here, then there is much better space for the character to be in the picture. This is the first thing we can do, and you can stop right there and say, okay, I'm fine with that, right? I'm just my characters are in the correct spots, right? Everybody can see them, they're almost at the center. It's really cool, they have some interaction. But I would actually even push it even further. Why? Because even in the previous composition, but also even in this new one, there is the problem of ambiguity of which character is in front and which character is behind. So this character, right, this character here, this character here is larger than the other one, and someone has to infer that he is most probably in front of the other character. But since they are not touching at all with each other, and the buildings are almost the same size, right? There is no way, and their buildings are also far away, there's no way for someone to clearly, very clearly see, okay, this character is in front and this other character is behind, right? That means that I need to make this much more clear for the viewer which character is in front, and this will also give me more dynamic composition. So how I do that, right? It's really simple. I just going to make this character much bigger and have him overlap at least a point of the other character, right? Let me just pick this color and just delete this part of this of the background here, so we can see it, right? And then if I just also delete to make sure we have the same canvas, I'm just gonna also delete the background here, right? And just make this like that. And here now we have an overlap of one character to the other, and we can clearly see, okay, this character is in front because his leg is in front of the other character, and that means this character, the other character is in the back, right? And there is no ambiguity anymore which character is in front of the other character, right? In terms of camera perspective. That's one thing that I'm suggesting that makes the composition dynamic and also clearly shows which character is in front of the other, so there's no ambiguity on this picture. And the second thing is going in more on the light and actually pushing the contrast, because what we have now is we have such a huge amount of contrast on the buildings, like we have this value for the building and this value for the sky. And if I just go to black and white, you can see there is a huge value difference on here between the buildings and the sky. And that means the whole focus goes to the buildings and the sky instead of going to the characters. But of course, the whole idea, I assume, is you wanna push the focus on the characters more, right? So there are two things we can do. Is one thing is we can focus on the light and say, okay, we can push the light of the characters, and let me just kind of pick almost white, right, and just create a layer of hard light and just start creating a hard light, right? Like if we are from above, looking from above, this, this, right? And just create this kind of kind of light, and then go with also with a multiply and starts picking the sky and just create a little bit of shadows for these characters, right? Like more shadows. That should be in shadow. Here the stuff should be in shadow, and just try to create contrast like that. That's one goal, right, that we can have. That's one thing we can have in order to create focus for my character, for the characters. The second thing we can do also is to lower the contrast to the contrast on the background. So if I just now go here, right, and just take the color of the sky and just fill this thing with this. Let me just go and just delete the background from the characters, right? So we don't have this areas, and also here and so on. Okay. Okay, and then lower the opacity on this one. We can still have the buildings coming up from behind, right? But not have the buildings getting all the attention of the characters, right? It just also, I think this should be also deleted, just to avoid having this building. All right, so if we look the before and after of what we have done, pretty much is we move the characters more in front, and we lowered the contrast in the buildings behind, and also increased the contrast on the light and the shadows, right? So if we see it from a little bit more afar, because of course this needs much more time to get finished compared to the previous one, right? This is the previous one. The characters are far between each other. They don't have that much of interaction. We have this tangent line on the left, right, of his hand touching the actual canvas corner. We have the ambiguity, who is in front, who is behind. We kind of made these appropriate changes. Then one is clearly in front because the other leg gets hidden by this character in front. Then we have less contrast on the buildings and much more focus on the characters. This is exactly what we want, essentially, right? Now, why I had also the different reference here, the different references, was just a little bit more nitpicking on the different poses. Like, for example, if you wanted to, have the poses a little bit better, you could go and find similar parkour references of people jumping around and so on, and just make them a little bit more flowy. For example, like if you wanna do and correct, let's say, and give a flow onto the arms, you could just go and just take the arm and just create a little bit of flow like that. So that compared to the arm that you had, right, this continues this line of having the flow. But this is just nitpicking. I would suggest is go focus on the composition first and on the way the contrast gets distributed in the image, like clear overlaps, and that's the first steps in to achieve the biggest bang for your buck, right? The biggest changes in the image with the least amount of effort. Okay. That's all for Steve. If you have any questions, of course, just let me know in the chat, guys. Then let's go to the next one. So the next one is from Prince. Hopefully you're still in the chat, Prince. This is quite of a different entry because Prince asked me to give him a feedback on his portfolio, which was quite a few images. So I chose a little bit of some of the images from your portfolio, Prince, to just go through your portfolio and give you some advice on what you can do in terms of the different images. So what I have written down is different ways you can enhance the stuff. One thing is I really like the portfolio, right? I like the different chibi characters that are here. I like the colors a lot. They're popping out. They're really great. I also like the character ideas. Putting them in environments is really cool. It shows how they can be interacting with the different objects. I really like that. I also really like the line art, and I like that the characters in the different poses and stuff are quite consistent, which is very difficult for many young artists to have that, to have consistency in the characters and have the characters looking the same. Having said that, if you wanna improve the portfolio, I have written down some quick tips on how you can do it in terms of the whole general portfolio. One thing is, I would suggest, for example, on this one, it's really cool seeing him, dancing, laughing, and so on. But I would put a little bit more emphasis on the expressions, right? So this is, as I see it, for example, this is a kind of a resting expression, or he's reading something, but it's not quite clear exactly what kind of expression is. Is it just a normal expression? Is he, I don't know, reading something that he gets surprised? And at the same time, compared to this one where he is angry, I would suggest, for example, is just doing some simple stuff like moving, for example, the eyebrows lower, right? Just to really enhance that he is angry, right? Something like this. So we know that he's very angry, right, in this expression. So this kind of little bit of nuances will help you, um, um, achieve this last 20%. You're 85% there, but you have a little bit of things and nuances to take care of here in terms of expressions. I would go back and look at different expressions of people and try to see, where are the levels of the eyebrows where I'm getting angry, right? Or where I'm getting surprised. Do they move around, or where is my mouth going, right? And this kind of areas. But really great work. I really like that he's interacting with the environment, and I really like that you have also some kind of funny moments here. For example, the chair is much bigger than him, and so on. If you are pushing for this kind of jobs, right, for chibi character animation, simplified animation, that's really great. On this one, on Eco Story, I would suggest is try to have a little bit different expressions. Like what I'm seeing here is like she's happy here. I'm sorry. She's happy here. She's happy here. She's also happy here. This is good that she's crying. This is also good that she is probably hungry, I assume. But I would also kind of replace one of the expressions with her being mad, for example, or her being doing some other expression, right? So emphasize on variety instead of kind of having very very similar expressions that don't show your plethora of skills, right? Of art skills. The other thing I could do is like maybe do some props around here, right? You have this one which is really great, but then it's not clear what she's holding here, or here this is very small, for example. I would choose like make more variety of expression, clearer props than having 15 different things that three of them or four of them are almost the same expression. Okay. In any case, Prince, if you have any questions or you have any doubts, just let me know in the chat, right? On the third one, I really like the pose. I really like the expression. He's clearly ready for battle. I really like the flow of these areas here, but I would suggest to try to make the light a little bit more simplified, just because the portfolio aims on simplified characters. Lean more into it, right? Like try to get to, for example, say, okay, this is high enough, for example, in terms of value, right? What you have here is there is no need for so much highlights on these areas. Like we can clearly see this is the light part, right? Then we can go a little bit darker on these areas, then darker, then darker here, darker here, then a little bit darker, and so on, right? So kind of having the light from here pushing lower values on this side. Okay, and if you want to do some highlights with white, which I wouldn't actually recommend it, but still, if you want to do, just keep them small, right? Not too much highlights, because having so much complexity in the hair takes away from the focus which we want to be here, right? and you put so much effort on the face and so much effort on the metallic areas, just don't try to move away the focus from there, right? The Similarly here, I wouldn't just go also kind of try to I would try to simplify this area. Like, I would just keep it simple, right? Just make some highlights, that's fine, but not so much. Just keep it more simple in order to play with the focus on the areas you actually want, right? If the focus is here, then okay, cool, this has a lot of areas and a lot of details, that's fine. Or for example here, I wouldn't go for the yellow. I would just stay in the area of this, and just if I wanna bring a more lighter value, I would just make it like that. So it's clear that the value of his clothes is similar to the base value of the clothes, right? The light value of the clothes. For example, also here, right? And that keeps the focus more on this face area. That's on this one. And for the other two, first of all, I have a question. Is this yours or also this? That's my question, right? Because it seems that these are two completely different styles, right? This sounds more like, to me, it looks more like your style, this one, and this looks more like a reference, but I'm not sure. Are both the interpretation of the same character in two different styles, or this is more like a reference on one side and the other one? I just would like to know in order to understand more on where we should put focus. And that's my question on this one. So if you can write me in the chat, that would be great. And on this one, I would suggest, since it's a completely different style, maybe try to group it with some other similar style characters, right, that you have, because this is not chibi, this is not simplified, it has a lot of brush work and all of the stuff. I would just group it with another set of characters in a similar style, so that we don't confuse the portfolio and we say, okay, here the area of the portfolio is for simplified characters, but somehow someone goes down there and sees this. I would just separate the stuff into different areas of the portfolio. Okay, so you have done the left on your style, more on a chibi style, and the other one on the other style. So I would suggest is, since these two styles look more like similar because they are more the proportions are different, the style is different, I would probably group this kind of characters together in the same page, just showing that you can also draw different styles, right? So more of a kind of a classic anime or semi-realistic anime, and then move all of these characters that have this kind of proportions, not chibi proportions, in this area, right, of your portfolio, and then keep the chibi simplified characters on their own area, just to have kind of separation and better grouping, so someone can understand that, okay, I can do simplified chibi characters, I can do this kind of semi-realistic proportion characters, and I can do, chibi characters with advanced lighting and so on. This is I would go and build the portfolio with that in mind, and try to more focus on, as we said, less on, okay, I need to put 15 different poses of the same character, but if I put less but clearly different poses in terms of expression of pose of props, it's much better to show variety than trying to, draw exactly the same expression or draw a very similar expression for the character. So try to think about this when you're creating your portfolio, okay? But in general, I would like to say great works, great colors. You're 85% there. Just look at these nuances and the way you present your portfolio, and I think that would be a much better a much better impression on your portfolio. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. We have still 2 more submissions to go through, guys, and then we can also chat for other related drawing topics if you have in the chat. Yeah, so this is from Munchoren, the submission. Thanks first of all for submitting, and thanks for submitting different kinds of work. This shows that you're practicing. I really like that. There are there are way different poses. I like that you're practicing different poses and so on. There are also very interesting sketches. I really like that. I see you kind of you're taking inspirations from anime. If I'm not wrong, that's also good. I would suggest also taking inspirations from, also not from anime only, but also from other kind of styles to kind of practice. But that's already good that you're practicing faces and so on. So if you want, if we want to discuss all the submissions in a way, in one way, I would say, if you want to kind of go to the next level, right, from what you have here, I would suggest in focusing mainly on one thing first, right? So you wanna break down the way you're training for becoming better, and start focusing on different areas now, right? You have a lot of practice in different characters. How you're gonna get better in different areas? And the first area I would suggest focusing on is trying to improve line quality. What I'm seeing in all the characters, although they are great ideas, great poses, is that we have what we call sketchy lines, right? So when I'm starting to draw here, I want to draw the arm, right? I'm doing this, and this creates this kind of sketchy lines, right? So that means it not only it actually takes away from the flow of the hand, right? But at the same time creates unnecessary focus in areas that we don't need the focus. So I would suggest the following is, if you're drawing on paper, get an heated eraser, which is an eraser which will actually not completely erase your lines, but make them much in terms of opacity, less opaque, and then you would be able to go above the lines and create much better lines by drawing with your shoulder. That means is when you draw, you don't draw with your wrist, right? Neither with your elbow. You draw with your shoulder. You do big movements with your shoulder in order to achieve better lines. So let me show you here. For example, if I lower the opacity for, let me find the correct reference. That should be it. If I lower the opacity for this character, right, and now I'm starting to draw with my shoulder for this character. Instead of drawing with my wrist and just making very small lines, I want to draw completely with my shoulder. So I'm just gonna try to maybe do it like that, then I have like this, then I have like this, then I have like this. So having in mind that you have with a kneaded eraser dropped the opacity of the lines in that sense that the lines are much smoother and less this kind of too many lines, scratchy lines, right? Like this, then you do it like this, right? And you have almost one line, for your characters. And you will see if when I just finish here the character, let's make some lines quickly, right? And just go over your lines. So this is probably a hat, right? And you see I'm using Control Z, which is in digital drawing is just making sure that it's undo, but on the paper you can always delete, you can always get the kneaded eraser, have your line again, lower the opacity, and then you have, right? Just give me a few minutes, I will be done. And as you can see also I'm mainly using straight lines, right? Okay, so that's the result, right? Compared to what we had before, which was this, right? Then we have this result. It's much clearer what this character is and where are the focus areas that we want to have. And if I want to have focus on here, I can just start doing this anime lines, giving him, different expressions and so on, right? And make hair and so on. Okay? So you say you're struggling with twisting the torso. What do you mean with that, right? Do you mean in terms of anatomy, struggling with this twisting the torso, or something else? In terms of poses, you're struggling with twisting the torso? Drink some water also at the same time. Anatomy, okay. Yeah, I would suggest, again, before starting with the characters and going directly to draw the character, right? I would suggest breaking down, first of all, what you want to draw. For example, if I again lower the opacity on this one, right? Let's assume this is his torso, right? What I do is I just make the line for the torso, right? Yes. Then I have this, right? It's looking towards here, and then I wanna have the pelvis looking a little bit more this. So that means his shoulders are like that, and I want the pelvis to look a little bit like this, right? All right, then what do? Is I just take this line here and I assume that the pelvis would be like this. Most probably it's going to be much higher because the pelvis is usually like that, this one, unless the character on purpose has a higher upper body ratio, right? Then I have the pelvis, and I want to push the pelvis more to us, like this line gets here, right? So this line is this, and this is this, right? I create this kind of pelvis, and I have this area, which would be one leg, and this would be the other leg, right? Then I say, okay, I need this leg to be right here and this other leg to be right here. Then what do is I just put this structure right here, right like that. Upper part of the leg, lower part of the leg, again upper part of the leg, lower part of the leg, right? Then I have it like this. And that means my upper board is looking like this, and this is a small twist of the torso. And then I get the arms, which would be when we know the arms are coming around here, right? I'm up to here. And then if I'm gonna go like this, then I bring the rest of the arm here, and then I have his hand here, right? Then I have the other shoulder, which I just imagine would be like this, because this is the line I put. Like if you see your elbow, it's going almost to the last rib of your rib cage, right? Then I have the lower part, right, and then I have the hand. And this is then like that. He's looking at us. Let's make him look at us. Right. And then we have this. And then we have the legs. Like this. Then having this structure and you knowing that the pelvis is looking like this and this like this, that means that I can now draw based on this structure, and I can draw a character, right? Like, I don't know, I have the eyes here, right? The eyes here, the nose, oops, it's on the same layer. I have the eyes here, I have the nose, I have the mouth, I can do the hair here, I can do the ears, I'm going like this, right? I'm getting the shoulder, I'm getting the tricep, I'm getting that, I'm getting the lower arm, right? I am getting the bones of my rib cage, then I'm getting the other shoulder, I'm getting the bicep here, the arm, I'm putting the the chest muscles, right? I'm putting the muscles of the abs, right? I'm putting the lats, and so on, right? And this is how, based on the structure that I have, I'm just drawing the rest of the body. have this, this should be this, and this is how I have the anatomy. And then based on that, I will draw the clothes on top. Okay? So this is the result, right? When you follow structure and when you follow the underlying structure and what you need to build on top of this. Okay? Does this help on having the upper body and how to draw based on the structure and how to figure out where each area is looking at? Cool. All right. Then what we said is one thing is we have the line quality and the second thing is the structure. I would generally suggest is starting with structure, starting with simpler, with a much simpler camera views, and then going to such kind of extreme perspective camera views where you're looking completely from above, because for example, to be in terms of perspective correctly, then you need to set up your floor here, and then you need to draw lines, right, and understand how this would be bigger completely here, right? And based on this perspective box, you need to define, okay, if this is the upper plane of the box, where exactly should be the end of the pelvis, which is the half of the body. Which you find this one by creating these two lines from the different points of this box, right? And then that means this is the middle of the body. So that means my torso then would need to stop even higher, right? Because that means the torso should come a little bit more lower than the part of the body that remains for the pelvis. So as you can see here, like this is kind of a 2/3, 1/3 proportional anatomy, for example, right? So this 2/3 should be here, somewhere here, and that means I need to move the torso much higher up, and his head I need to move it and become even bigger, right, in order for me to simulate the perspective of the camera, right? In order for me to have this kind of big arm, a big hand, I'm sorry, then I need to have the head much bigger. Because if for example, how you can think here, right, is like if you put the arm, your hand next to your head, you will see that your hand is almost similar size to your head, right? It's almost the same height. So that means if I have such a big arm here and I have it almost at the same height as the head, I need to be thinking this kind of details. So that's why I'm saying is like this kind of views are quite complicated, and it may also include fisheye perspective here, and you don't know. So what I suggest is work on the lines, right? And also try to start with a little bit of less perspective in the poses, like this one, where the horizon line is somewhere here, right? And then you have this kind of stuff where you just going like that, right? And so on. That would be my suggestion. Move this stuff back. Okay, and finally, we have Satis. Hopefully you're still in the chat. Thanks for waiting that much, and thanks for submitting. A great submission again, a very cool character, a very interesting character. I think it reminds me a little bit of Vampire X Jojo with stunts as the power, but also at the same time it gives me some vampiric vibes, like with a black jacket and the black pants and so on. I think it's really cool. I think also the colors are well defined, because I can clearly see, the character based on the background from very far. That's really well done. The only thing I would suggest is to for the colors is to give some kind of shadow in the background so that you can have a little bit of separation, but it's just nitpicking. So mainly what I think, what I'm going to talk about here is, if you want to improve a little bit of the stuff, is looking a little bit on anatomy, a little bit of on proportion stuff, and a little bit on composition. So one thing that I'm seeing here is, I would suggest is, first of all, is to move this hand out of the pocket, right? Because this clearly kind of shows like, okay, like I would like to see this hand doing some kind of expression, right? Like, I don't know, like being like very, very energetic or something like that. Because having the hand in the pocket kind of breaks the whole pose, right? Here, like of him. That's one of the suggestions. The second thing is to try to go over the anatomy of the hands and the bones of the skeleton, right? If you if you see I just love it. If you see like the way the bones on a human body are placed, they kind of have a little bit of difference. For example, like this bone here, oops, sorry, I just want to duplicate this. This bone here is actually, when you turn the bones, is actually going from bigger to smaller, right? And is actually behind this bone here, behind this bone here. Like this should come bigger and then smaller, which is the bone in front, and the bone behind is from bigger to smaller, right? Then we have an area which is like, let me just pull this back. Then we have an area which is like like a diamond shape, right? And these are all the bones on the hand. And then from this area we have the rest of the bones starting here. So we have this, we have this, and we have this starting like that, right? So it's more like this than what we have here, which is more like a flat area. Especially if we are looking this from above, this diamond shape should be even bigger. And then we have um, the the bones for the fingers, right? Doing something like this. Like this is the biggest bone. This is smaller. This is like that, and this is like that. Okay. So I would suggest kind of looking a little bit more on the anatomy of the bones and having um, uh, corrections. And if you do exactly the same on the other bone, right? Like that would be exactly the same where you have, this is a little bit more better. You have the bigger bone like this, but then you have smaller this, and then you have this one being bigger at the top. So let me just bring the black in front. Then we have the diamond shape. Then we have this. This is bigger, this is smaller, and this is smaller. Okay? That's a little bit of corrections on the bones and all the stuff. And the other thing is, of course, on the skull. I don't know if you have done this. If this is supposed to be a kind of simulating a real skull, but if you want to simulate a real skull, right, this should be more like that, right? This should be like this, and then you have, of course, the rest of the sharp teeth, which is fine, and also this stuff, right? So I would suggest this kind of things. Let's also kind of, I want to give you also an example of like the hand and what you can do, right? You can just do like and bring it like this, and then get the hand here and say, okay, I want to have something like that, right? And then it's more like a very, very intentional hand on this thing. The other thing I would definitely do is try to make them overlap more and create an illusion that this thing gets created by him and is more like a thing that got created by him, right? So I would put it like more overlapping him a lot more. That would be my suggestion. Let me just, let's see how we do that. Move it like that, and then delete. And that means when I see this, right, compared to the other one, there is a more connection between them. Let me just, oops, get the hand here. Like that. And what he can do also to improve this is get all this kind of atmospheric fog or magic lines and create a way for this to be very atmospheric behind him. So it's almost like it's been hidden, this whole atmosphere behind him, right? And then based on that, we can actually try to make these lines go appear around him, right? And they kind of consume him on the different areas. All right, so that means it's more like a kind of a spirit that starts from him and then becomes this kind of whole bone character with this kind of feathers around him, but it starts from a more of an airy fog-like magic that gets consumes him around. Now, if you wanna push it even more to the next level and have the magic actually being shown and be very prominent, I would suggest is to play around with a much darker background, right? So if I just let's say if we can do that, like choose this and just delete everything if we can. We have the character and then let me just bear with me a little bit, and I'm just gonna delete the whole background, and I'm sorry I'm deleting also your name, but I'm just wanna prove a point. What we want is we want to darken the background, so we want to take this value and just push it more down, right, and create a background that is much darker. And actually even darker. Now, when I create this kind of magic around the character, it will immediately pop because the background is dark, the value of the background is much lower, and whenever I put such a high value next to it, it will create such a strong contrast, and it will just make everything pop much better. So I have this, and then I can get this value, have it here. Let's just do all the stuff. Then I have these values. I'm just doing this very quickly. All right. Then I want to create this huge contrast, right? And then I'm taking this value and I'm just creating this magic going around him and all the stuff. And now it's much more clear than before, compared to before, right? If you see it from far away, almost the magic is not really there, right? But if I show here this, then the magic really pops because of the background being darker, okay? And that means I can show much more the magic if I want in different areas and even make this character pop even more. Okay? Hopefully you got the point and what is the whole idea of doing here, and how we want to be looking at backgrounds and how backgrounds can help us get our point through, right? Um, instead of having backgrounds actually working against us when someone sees because the whole point behind this is that someone will see this picture either on their mobile phone or for a very few seconds, and they will see, okay, I have a character here, okay, yeah, I have another character here. Then they won't be able to notice the magic right in the first few seconds. But with this one, they will immediately notice the magic. The first few seconds. Okay? So that's my suggestions for this. Yeah, I think if you try to think a little bit on the values of the background, if you're having magic effects, it's better to choose darker backgrounds in order to show the light. Have a look at the hand and make sure it's kind of helping the whole pose and all the stuff. And also what we did is we changed the airiness of the character so it better overlaps with the main character we have. Okay? Yeah, if you guys have any questions, or if you have any questions around drawing or around improving in general, let me know in the chat. These were all the submissions. We did this one, we did this one, we did this one, we did this one, the portfolio, the sketches, and finally this one. Thank you again all for submitting. It has been really great to see your works. Very, very interesting ideas, a lot of creativity. I really like them. How to add depth in drawing? Okay. Do you mean, when you say drawing and depth, do you mean sketching or do you mean painting? In the meantime, I'm going to go to the next question. What tips can you give me to give to a ballpoint artist? For ballpoints, is first of all is try to not press the ballpoint the pen much. So gradually increase your pressure on the areas you wanna create focus, right? I don't know if I can show you some old ballpoint stuff that I have been doing, but essentially, since ballpoint, the only thing you can actually control is your own hand pressure, because there is no pressure sensitivity in ballpoint. Try to have a very, very light hand and start drawing and slowly going into the pressure, and try to use techniques like hatching and cross hatching to create more emphasis on shadows and stuff, because they're the only way to create the different shadow areas is with hatching and cross hatching. You don't have that many options. Then you say how to create depth, Satish Kumar, on drawing on sketch, right? Okay. Let's see this for example, right? I have Moonshoran's here sketch, right? And I want to create depth and get this character. So I have the basic line work here, and I want to create depth, right? First of all, I need to make some choices. Where should I put my depth, right? On the sketch, where should I give emphasis? Do I wanna follow the rules of okay, whatever is further away has less depth, and whatever is closer to us has more depth. Do I want to also combine this with some kind of potential light source? Most probably yes. So if I choose and say I have two criteria here, right? One is I want to create depth based on the view, like the closer stuff to me have more importance, and second on light source, which arbitrarily I'm gonna choose from above, right? I have a light source from above. So how I would do it, right? I would go and say, okay, this the hands are the most important things that I'm showing here that are closer to me. Then I would increase my line, and start putting line emphasis on the arms compared to the rest of this one, right? So I'm creating heavy lines and I'm playing with a line weight, with a line weight here, right? So all the lines that are in the planes that see less of the light are heavier because I'm choosing the light from above. All the lines that are more looking at the light, which is coming from above, are less heavy, and here, like this is how I create depth, right? The same. All these lines. That's one way to create depth. Then if I go a little bit more down, I move my brush size a little bit lower, then I continue the same thing, right? More heavy lines on the downside, even lower, smaller brush, and I continue like that. Or for the head, I increase again the brush because it's closer to us. I create this kind of lines. And as I go further up and up, I create this. Now I want to also create depth by maybe creating some cast shadows, right? Then what I do is, let's say the head is creating some cast shadow here, then I do a very very thin line on the cast shadow, and then I do hatching. And then maybe I do it also here. And then I do it here. And then maybe I do it here. Because there is shadows here. All shadow on the fingers. And like that, I'm creating shadows in the sense that I want to give focus, like whenever I have shadows, I want to give focus in specific areas. So if I just change this, you see the difference on the way that this is presented, right? This is how I create focus by sketching. The character design. What do you mean by the character design? I don't quite get. Princess, I'm planning to do my higher studies in Germany to learn 2D animation. As there is not much in India, any suggestions? I don't know about schools. I'm actually self-taught and I haven't been to school, so I cannot really help you here. I'm sorry, Prince. Um, I'm sorry about that. Um, Satis, if you can explain more, what do you mean around character design? That would be great. But Prince, that's cool to hear that you're planning to come here. Hopefully you can find a school that is up to your expectations. Let me grab some water and wait a few minutes. If you have any questions, guys, just drop them in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat, so if there are no further questions, guys, I will probably also leave you to go about with your day. I'm gonna wait a few minutes in case a question pops up. If not, then I'm gonna wish you a great rest of the day. Again, for those who submitted, thank you so much for your submissions. Hopefully it was helpful. And as I said, this live it's not a single instance. In my artwork, how will you add depth? Pretty much this is how I am adding depth on the sketches, like I said here, right? And this maybe I will just drop it completely in the background. Yeah. So if there are any new questions, I'll leave you to go on with your day, guys. I want to thank you again for submitting, and thank you also for watching. It was really a pleasure talking to you and chatting with you. This live will stay and become a video on the live section in my YouTube profile, so you can always go there and rewatch it if you wanna check out some stuff and repeat some sections or pause and maybe check out again what we have done. It won't be also definitely the last one. We'll do more in the future. Again, thank you so much. Have a great day, and hopefully see you guys quite soon. Thank you again.